I'm gonna join it, just, I think it'd be good. But, oh well. I didn't really wanna go, and then Sydney signed up to be it already, and then I was just like, oh, I don't wanna go.
Okay, the 24th.
Yep, again, I've scratched it off once already, I changed rooms.
Oh, look at this. Have you seen this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that one.
I like the other one.
What?
It's the
The one where it's like
I don't know how many.
the kid with the oven door.
Oh, the one that's
Great, I got back from my
Which chapter was it?
He's really hard. I was like super nervous about our first paper. And then he said that I was gifted in class today. And I was like, oh, thank you.
He said he's gonna
Your writing style is engaging and nearly error-free.
What about standard?
I was so scared because he's like an art teacher, but he wants you to do essays too.
Okay, just kidding.
What?
I just asked you if you would have class.
Oh, okay. That's a rain jacket.
Because it's gonna rain.
Yeah, I know that. I thought that was like a really heavy coat, like a parka. I was just like, what are you wearing?
That's what mine is. Water boy. 60-degree weather. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I've ever heard anyone say.
It's below 90 degrees, you can't.
I've got to work that.
See, digital art.
Hey, so what's our topic? Oh, okay.
Airplane.
I love airplanes. It's not really a favorite.
I've never.
I've never been in an airplane.
And I was like,
My dad has
maybe I
pilot
should
planes.
take a
My best
meeting.
friend said,
So you think,
I'm like, she's like, I was like,
Do you know that our school spent $30,000
Like, I can't even
on
get a pack of
digital
food.
art? It hurts.
When you went to college.
Nobody
I was gonna say, if you got gum, it really, really helps.
I mean, like, I've heard of
But it
it,
still hurts.
I'm scared I'm gonna like overdose on Dramamine.
but not as much, like, going to math is harder than
It
flying. It really is.
And I spent
get up there, they just
$30,000
pop
and I'm like,
I was going to Virginia to Kentucky over the summer.
And turbulence isn't even really bad thing a problem. Like I've been through some before.
When I went to New York and just did the elevators to the top of the rock, my ears, like, I really thought there was
A study abroad or a message going to Cuba. I should really go.
I ain't going nowhere out of this country on a plane. Got me messed up.
Yeah, but I can hear it.
I rode on a plane one time for 5 hours straight, and when I stepped off that plane, I didn't even want to get back on to go back home at the end of the week.
You walked in the door.
Really? I'm telling you right now, you ain't gonna enjoy it. 'Cause my luck was that a baby was next to me, and that thing cried the whole 5 hours.
I can't help it.
Oh, his mama can. That baby do something, rock him. I don't know, but he cried the whole 5 hours.
I want to go to Ireland first. And then I want to go to Spain.
But the way he does the truth is like, he was his company. It's like all inclusive and it's like 3,000.
I gotta get back before Grace Academy comes on.
And like,
Wait, is that
tonight?
Yes.
Oh, I waited so long.
Do you want to come?
Yeah.
But that 3,000 something includes like,
Oh my, okay, my roommate's
Yeah.
on your class from
Hotel,
6 to 9, and it starts at 8.
As long as I can get a loan for it, oh, this is like, I ain't got no money.
No, I can't. I would not be able to, like,
I've been looking forward to
I
this all
took a
week.
plane to Washington State. That's
I
why I
wasn't
was
sure.
North Carolina, Washington.
Every day.
I stepped out that thing, I was like, please, can we take a car back home?
Like every day, I'm like,
My dad was
Grace
like, no,
Academy
you
comes
need to
back in
get
3
your
days.
ass back
I
on the
gotta
plane.
go to my sister.
I know Columbus, but now it's
And my sister's even.
It won't like refresh food,
and they're gonna go to fly to Disney World.
which I can't. Oh, hey, what do you do?
Brandon doesn't like to fly, but I'm like, I'm pretty good with like small ones. Like I've flown to Charlotte a couple times, but that's like 30 minutes, and I'm okay with that. But then 5 hours plus,
Actually, eliminated pasta.
couldn't do it. Like the man,
Ireland, how long?
yeah, and people snore, babies cry.
The worst flight I've ever
That's
been
where
on.
I'm
Seats
going.
like this big,
I know.
and then
I'm
my
really
luck
regretting
was
sitting
there was this lady who was next to me who bought 2 seats. And she was taking up all the space, and I was like, "Did you really
You
need
don't
to
want to
buy 2
practice
seats?"
instead of going to sleep. You
Like-
want to sleep tonight while you're practicing?
For real, like she bought 2 milk like regular seats and had all of her crap like piled up next to me. It's really fun.
I think so, yeah.
I flied first class on the way back home because I like had a meltdown in the thing and I didn't want to get back on the plane. It's like whenever you take off, it like presses in your chest. And you feel like an elephant has like stuck on you. I had like a meltdown.
Wait, what you mean?
Yes.
Just like, oh.
I was younger, and you know how like you have to have somebody fly with you. They moved me to coach because I was like, I don't want to. I need my older brother lives there, and I was like, yeah, I had like a breakdown.
Well, I got like,
I'm gonna go to Fayetteville and fly to Wilmington for our next trip. That would take like 10 minutes.
That's kind of similar to
The music
Yeah.
director for Les Mis, she every Friday she would drink like a huge bottle of straight vegetables.
okay, all right.
I love Les
Let's start.
Okay. My name's Elizabeth and this is Kaylin, and our topic is Chapter 3, Flying to Friendly Skies. How safe is aviation safety and how safe should it be? So can anybody summarize or just tell something they didn't know before they read that you found out through reading?
So I didn't know that flying is actually safer than walking.
I didn't know that a plane has 2 fuel gauges.
Okay.
I didn't know that 60% of aircraft accidents happen on takeoff and landing, and that it's only 6% of the flight time.
Anybody else? Those are all examples. If anybody want to give a brief summary? Okay, so overall, air safety is the theory, the investigation, and the analysis of the air failures, which is air incidents or accidents, and it's the prevention of those failures in the future through regulation, education, and training. Okay, in the book it talked about scarcity. Can anybody tell me what that is, or give the example that it gave in the book?
To get more of any good, you have to sacrifice some of another.
Well, this isn't necessarily from the book, but like how I interpret it was that like in terms of like plane safety, like to get more safety, it seems like we've lost privacy.
And this applies to safety just like it does material things that you can get and buy or anything else. You want to talk about the benefits and costs?
What would be like the pros of aviation safety and security?
Well, you would feel safer than if, like, you didn't have to be checked before you got on a plane. You wouldn't have to worry as much.
Okay. Anybody else?
If it was safer, more people would probably fly, and like the airlines would get more money.
Okay. And along with safety comes security. So this is talking about aviation safety and security. Like cost of aviation safety and security, I guess will be like who's ever been flying? Has everybody ever flown? But I haven't flew either. So I don't know like what the wait times are when you're getting checked, like your bags and luggage. Okay, good.
If they find like one thing on your luggage, they like rip it open and tear through the whole thing, and you get like this letter in there that says we broke your lock to look in your bag, and that's not really a good part of the safety because they've like rummaged through your luggage.
And like, especially, I mean, going out of the country isn't as hard as it is to come back into the country, because then you have to fill out this form. And yeah, you have to go through customs, you have to go through security. If you have any food at all, they have to you have to tell them like where you got it and what it is. And I mean, it's a struggle. It takes really a long time.
What is the longest time that you have to come back here?
Total, I think it took around 5 hours to get from the off the plane to when I could leave. It took 5 hours, waiting in lines, and then having to talk about like my luggage and having them look in my luggage and then I can go.
And like from what I know, like all the precautions and stuff, especially like going through like customs, it promotes like people are more likely to lie, cause like when you tell the truth, it just takes so much more time. So like if the customs officer is like, do you have any food, items that you're bringing back to the States? A lot of people will just be like, no, because they're just not gonna look. But that could have like adverse effects, but because of the tedious system, people are more likely to not tell the truth.
I think that one of the main hassles of flying is TSA, transportation security, and just getting through TSA is, you know, a lot of people, you know, the stipulations that they have, you know, if you're above 13, you have to take your shoes off and all of this. A lot of people like to complain about because, oh, it takes time, or, you know, it's stuff that we don't want to do. But in reality, it's what keeps us safe, even if some of it does sound ridiculous. And I've flown like to different places, so like different places have a little bit stricter regulations. Like the bigger airports you go to are much more on top of that than like the little regional airports. But like what the big problem with people complaining about like the things that they have to do is if they don't do that, it's what happened during 9/11 is the cause of why they've, you know, all the new things have happened. And ever since 9/11, nothing like terrible has really happened that way. Excuse me. So because of that, people like to, you know, oh, it takes too long or whatever, but in the long run, it's actually probably protecting us more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's not only we're losing efficiency, but we're also losing privacy. So the last time I flew, I went through the metal detector and they didn't see anything, but I was randomly selected for a pat down, and a lot of people had problems with that. I was okay with it, but a lot of people have problems with that, and even the new full body scanners. I have friends who will refuse to fly because they will not go through one of those. They feel like it's a major invasion of privacy.
I mean, like, when people, like, refuse to, like, it frustrates me because they're doing it for our safety. It's not like they're just doing it because they want to see what we have. Like, it's keeping us safe. Like, I respect that they do that and they take the time to do that, because if they didn't, I probably wouldn't fly.
And a lot of, like, I've seen people, like, be, like, really, like, rude and disrespectful to the people who have to, like, perform the pat downs and the people who have to look at the screen when you get those full body scanners. And it's just like, and I've even like spoke to a few of them, and they like, it's their job, but like sometimes those people who have to stand in those security lines, sometimes they get paid more than the people who you see in the back rooms if there is something wrong, because a lot of times like customers are a lot more disrespectful to them.
Do you guys want to write down the pros and cons while people speak? One of you.
The first time I flew, I was underage. I think it was 14 at the time that you had to be, and I was probably 12 or 13, so that means that I had a flight attendant. And I kind of agree with Sierra, because like when you're younger, they like follow you around the airport to make sure that you're okay. And I saw people like yelling and getting mad over it, but in the end, like, would you rather them just be like, okay, on aboard everyone?
Well, that happened to me. I was 17 and my brother wasn't old enough, so I had to have a flight attendant because I wasn't 18 yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was like annoying, but I understood it. It's not
like they definitely helped, because at 12 it was really hard for me to figure out the airport, and I went through Atlanta, and if anybody knows Atlanta, it's like you have to take trains, so I can agree with why they do certain things, because it definitely helped me. But like you said, I wouldn't want everybody just be like, come on, get on. Yeah. We don't care what you have with you.
Okay, I'm gonna add on to what Blaine said. Prior to 9/11, everybody thought airport safety was up, as good as it should be. But after people realized it wasn't, what was some of the results of 9/11 like? What advancements did they take?
They had like more metal detectors, and you have to take everything, like shoes and everything, and put your bags through the thing. Like they have to check everything now before you can just walk through.
And I guess that's like for gun safety and stuff, but also since then, well, leading up to then, there's also a lot of smuggling of drugs that isn't as bad because it's not going to kill somebody. That's what you hear. But now they've got. I mean, every big airport you go to, there's probably every little terminal. There's probably about 4 or 5 drug sniffing dogs. So they've increased drug control a lot too, and they're not really scared to search your bag, which I guess is a good thing because it's just trying to protect us.
Are they all drug sniffing dogs, or would some of them be like bomb sniffing? I don't even know.
Right. I mean, some of them you've got some drug sniffing, some bomb. Yeah.
I think they're trained to do both too.
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
Like I think there's
there's,
like some that are like just trained for drugs, some that are
right,
just
they're
trained for
probably
bombs,
all
and then like
they can look for 'em.
Yeah, I saw the dog, in RDU airport this year. Before I never saw it.
Well, we flew to Puerto Rico over the summer, and like the difference between the Puerto Rico airport and the Jacksonville airport was significant because like we got off and there was like the police looked like cartel members and they all had like heavy artillery walking their like dogs, and I was like, all right, I'm very sketched out right now because like I'm a very insignificant small little boy, and I was like, but again, it's there not to like scare you, it's there to protect the people. And Atlanta's bad, DC's bad, LaGuardia, all of those airports. But I at least when I get on an airplane, I feel safe about it because I see everything that they have.
It was really interesting to see because for us the big thing is airport safety because of 9/11. Over spring break this past year, I got to go to France for a homestay, and we flew from Charlotte to Munich and then Munich to Paris. And in Paris, the airport security, I mean, it's not minimum, but it's definitely not what it is here. But if you go to like public places, you have fully armed like people in the military with uniforms and like machine guns because of what happened to the Charlie Hebdo attack. And so it was just interesting to see that like they've upped security in like public places so that because of that recent attack. So now everything is much different in terms of especially like tourist places and schools and all of that, whereas for us the huge security thing was in airports.
And like airports are even different in the US. Like he said, the Atlanta airport and LaGuardia, like they're big, so they have a lot of security, but like I flew into Akron in Ohio and it's tiny. Like we barely had to go through security. Like you just walk through and then you just keep going. Like it just depends on like the bigger airports, and like even the New York airport, like that had more security than Atlanta. And so it just depends on where you're going. And
the interesting thing is that with the variety of security, like my dad flies a lot for work, and he goes from Fayetteville, which is a really small airport, and he can go, if he's flying to Canada, he can go through all the security in Fayetteville, and it's a lot less, and not have to worry about any more security until he can go to Canada. Whereas if he went to Raleigh, he'd have to go through all this security, more screening for the same trip. And so it's interesting how like there are weak links in the system.
And I think exactly kind of what that is, it's obviously based off the population that come through the airport. So again, I'm from Florida, so Tallahassee is like it's the capital, but we still have one of the smallest like airports, which I don't understand. Anyways, not the point. But so I can get through Tallahassee Airport in 15 minutes, no problem. And they say get there 2 hours early, so I'm just sitting around for an hour and a half. But again, it's all for safety. But then you fly to Atlanta, and it's a whole nother, because the amount of people that go through Atlanta and all these big places, it's because that's where like, your connecting flights are and all this stuff. So you've got like, to have more security where more people is, if that makes sense.
Okay, so in the abstract that Kaylin typed up for y'all, it said that the FAA, and it's also in the book, it said that the FAA is expected to set safety standards for the airline industry. If that's the case, then why do you think that when you go to these different airlines or these different airplane companies that they have different regulations and enforcements?
I think it has to do with like costs because like the smaller airports don't have as much money to put into the airport, so I think they like divvy up what airports are more like that are busier because those are more likely to get attacked because more people are there, and like the smaller airports aren't as at risk as much.
Okay, so it's sort of like what Blaine said with the different amounts of people coming through.
I also think that might be partly because of like the type of flight, like maybe like a local flight versus like transatlantic.
Okay.
That like the FAA sets different security standards.
I think it also might be too who's using that airport. Like I don't know. I don't know what the closest airport to here is, but say Fayetteville, for example, the president's not landing there. So obviously we're not gonna have something as nice as say something in DC. You know what I'm saying? So I think it has to do with like who's gonna be there and who's using it too.
The difference can also have to do with time, I think. I went through, this past summer, going to Puerto Rico too, I went through, I think it was Raleigh, and they actually, you have to like take out any liquids you have. You're only supposed to have a certain amount of liquids for the airline. I can't remember what airline we were flying. And they have to be in a bag, and for that airline, you're supposed to have to take them out and put them in the box. Like, you can't put them in with your bag. And there was this huge line. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, huge line. And they were like, no, don't take anything out. Don't take your shoes off. You're, just trying to get people through. And for me, it was a little bit scary because I was like, I researched online what are the requirements, and then they're just like, this is too crazy. We're throwing away the safety, But
The same thing happened to my mom in Jamaica. Like, she got to Jamaica and she was like super nervous about the differences, and they were just like, go with the flow, like, don't worry about it.
Anybody else have any ideas?
Just tacking on to what they said, that seems to me like that wouldn't, if they're gonna eventually just be like, you know what, just forget about it anyway, why in the world have all these big old extensive security measures if you're just gonna just be like, go on, shoot fly, shoot fly. That kind of to me kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, like, the main thing the biggest thing they have is like those X-ray things, and everyone walks through that even if they're trying to make people go fast. Like, it might just not make you take your shoes off.
Well, it was just a metal detector. It wasn't like the big body scanner.
But I mean, that's still like something. It's still better than nothing. Then you're not just walking through the airport.
It was security, and they, even though the liquids were in my bag, they still X-rayed them.
Yeah, your bag still goes through. They still look at it. It's not. It just may be faster than it usually is.
Yeah.
They're still looking.
I think one of the reasons that some places might like ignore it is kind of like because of 9/11. Like, people wanted to know like how that could happen and why security wasn't good enough, so the government had to like step in and put on all these like beefed up security measures to show the people that they were doing something that it wouldn't happen again. But not every airport like sees the risk, and they're not gonna follow all of it. So.
It could also be because like Jamaica and stuff like that are like destinations for like being on like vacation, so it's not like you're going to like DC or something where like usually really intense stuff is around. Like, I mean, 9/11 happened in one of the biggest buildings we had, so I mean, Jamaica is probably not as worried about something like that because it's really just a beach there.
Well, what she said, they attacked, bigger buildings. So they're not going to come to a little small town with a tiny airport and attack it as compared to if they would like attack Atlanta's airport or that kind of thing.
Yeah, because if you think about it, terrorism is all about the impact it has. So 9/11, I mean, the Twin Towers had all sorts of companies. It had banks. It had international, it was just like this huge thing. So it had this huge impact on America, obviously, but then also like internationally. And I mean, if you were to attack Fayetteville Airport, yeah, it would probably make national news. But if you were to attack like an airport in DC or a huge airport in Atlanta or LAX or something, it would be like, I mean, it would be devastating. It would stop air traffic. I mean, it would just. So you gotta look at the like where they would go.
Yeah, well, I think like the planes that hit the towers in New York weren't actually going to New York. They were actually cross-country planes, and they chose cross-country planes because they were full of gas, and so they would burn hotter, and so or full of jet fuel. And so I think, and I was wondering if anyone else knows, do they have stricter regulations for? So like Fayetteville, all the planes, most of the planes going out of there are just little jump planes, like they're going to bigger airports. You know, they're going to hubs. Does anyone know if they have any stricter regulations for like a longer flight? Like a plane that could be used, because that's why they used those planes. They chose those planes. They redirected them, and they chose when they would have the most fuel in them.
I know they put a lot of more air marshals on.
I know, cause like I only anytime that I fly, it's like more than 6 hours. So, but I know that initially they would have like an air marshal on the plane, like you said. But now, like, not only do they have more, but a lot of the times that you won't see them in their like outfits and stuff. They'll just be like regular people, and you won't even know that they're there until something happens. Then you're just like, oh, that random guy up there is an air marshal. So I mean, like, there's in a sense of that, and then I know this may just be me, but when I go on longer flights, it feels like I have to stop at more security checkpoints. Like a 5 or 6 hour plane ride, there's a guarantee that I'm gonna have to stop in at least 2 of those big security checkpoints. So I just think that's me, but personally it makes me feel safer. So.
And then I think that also we have to remember that terrorism, one, it's to, to make an impact, but really it's to cause fear. And so.
It's terror.
Right, yeah, no, you're right. But like, you think of terrorism as the act, but it's the act, but then it's also the fear that is portrayed into. So like, it was sad that it happened and devastating and terrible that it happened in 9/11. But then it was afterwards, how the country reacted, how the government reacted, all that, in the sense of fear that it was started by flying. And then kind of going off, just looking at that, another benefit is that it provides more jobs for like because they're like at the big hubs, the TSAs, they're big, they've got a lot of people, and obviously they have a specific job, and that's to protect the airport and and all the airport. So.
Okay, do you feel that carry-on bags should be prohibited or just examined more carefully?
As an ignorant person when it comes to flying, because I've never flown a day in my life, I don't know anything about it. I personally think that they should be able to carry one bag and just check it more carefully, because I'm always hearing stories about how somebody loses their luggage. And if they allow like a small carry-on bag, at least they can put a little something in there to keep them going for maybe a night or two while they're waiting for the luggage to turn up.
No, go ahead.
So yeah, especially I've flown longer flights, and I have lost my luggage before, so I always carry like at least 1 week's worth of like medication if I'm taking any at that point. So I feel like it's important for people to be able to have carry-on bags for entertainment if they need it, for and then to hold like necessary items. So I feel like they should just examine it more carefully, because people would be really upset if they weren't allowed.
I have a question for you. Are there like certain requirements on the medication you can carry, or like does it have to be packaged in a certain?
Like I'm asthmatic, so my inhalers I can't carry on because of the way that it works. But like pills and everything, that has to be in the prescription bottle, and it has to have my name on it. And like same thing with like over-the-counter medicine, it has to be in the package. You can't just like carry loose pills with you, because then you can like make drugs to look like.
And then another thing is that when a lot of the specific, like the companies, you know, Delta and US Airlines, whatever, all of them have, like, the majority of them have a one carry-on bag. So, you know, you don't have people walking on with 4 or 5 carry-ons. But, like, a lot of people will have, like, a backpack that they have and then a carry-on. And I feel like they're pretty well checked already, like, now. Because, like, people, because they have a very set, you know, you can't bring multiple bags, you just have one in a backpack or whatever. That makes it very routine to check and easy to check. So by getting rid of that, it's not really useful and efficient.
I have a question about carry-on. So I think they're pretty well checked. I mean, they have set rules, and having only 2 is good. What are the additional safe? Like, how do they check baggage more? Does anyone know?
So you mean like carry-ons? Like how would they check that more?
Well,
Or
so do our check bags, like bags that you give to them, are they checked more?
It means a check.
Or, yeah, like are they safety checked more? Are they?
Well, I know they're put through like X-rays, and if they see anything that they can't identify like on the spot, then they're opened.
Well, because check bags are put through X-rays though too.
I think they actually open carry-on, like, because I have never been on a flight like as long as you. I've just went to Washington State, and that was like a 5-hour thing. But I had a carry-on bag, and all I had was snacks because I was like 12. But they like actually opened it and looked inside of it.
Yeah, they didn't open mine.
Really?
No, they X-rayed them. I mean, I thought it was like the one time they didn't even take out the liquid, which I was saying before. But I mean, they X-ray them, and so I was wondering, do they like actually open check bags, or do they just X-ray them? Is it the same process?
If they see, like you're talking about checked or carry on.
So check bags.
Checks go underneath the plane.
Yes,
That's
what I'm
you're
talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like luggage, like
They
suitcase.
they do open.
They do.
They open because
and carry on, they don't necessarily.
Because
if they see
right.
something, they will open.
Yeah.
But check bag, they do open. Because I
All
travel all the time, you
Yeah.
know, internationally. And I have this, you know, not rope, you know, to tie this back. And every time it's loosened. So
Yeah.
they have untied it.
Okay.
Yeah, opened it.
So are we saying that carry on should be opened? Is that the question then? Every time?
They open sometimes.
Yeah.
I think they should be open all the time.
X-ray is like questionable. They open it, but I don't
Yeah,
think it needs to be
but-
open every time.
Well, that's because she was saying, should it be more security for carry-on bags? So would that be the extra security? Would it be opening your carry-on
I
bag?
think so.
I mean, yeah, that's probably the best thing they could do, but I mean, they don't need it. Like,
You have to take out your laptop. You have to take out your phone. You have to take out most of the time your liquids.
Yeah.
You have to take a bunch of stuff out. So what's the point
It's
even opening
basically
it?
empty
Yeah, I think-
anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
much. And most of the time, the only thing you have in there is like your tablet and
Yeah.
some food.
Yeah.
And they can't restrict carry-on because carry-on's a lot cheaper because like with you, I'm pretty sure you won't want to buy stuff at every airport because it's like super expensive.
And I like to just carry on everything when I go on a trip.
Yeah,
I'll
you
just
can-
have my small
Right.
suitcase and
Yeah, I
not
usually
check
check
anything.
bags.
So expensive.
Yeah, I was gonna say another thing that you have to do, whether it's in your carry-on or in your luggage bag, you have to take out laptops and things like that to get special screening for those. So another question: do you think that the safety instructions that the flight attendant says and the ones that are there on the paper, do you think those have anything to do with like? Okay, I'll just give the example before I ask the question because I don't know really. Do you remember the U.S. Airways flight that landed on the Hudson River in like 2009, like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to talk about that before I talk about it? Okay, you can go.
Okay. Basically, they had like some type of difficulty on the plane. So when they went down, luckily they had like all the security, like the chutes went out. Most of the people were, I don't think there were any casualties, were there?
No, everyone looks.
No, right. And so like that just kind of showed like, you know, do your job, pay attention to all the manuals that you're supposed to read. But because the way they all came out, and then they had like the floatable boats, and so it was kind of a smooth kind of emergency landing.
It was like an example. Like if you needed an example, that was it.
Smooth emergency landing.
Yeah, but
Landed in a body of water.
just from the peanut gallery, if that's the crash I'm thinking about, what caused that particular crash was they ran into a flock of geese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just from the peanut gallery.
I think like in terms of like when you're on the plane and like listening to those flight attendants when they come out like over and over again, like eventually, I know it's bad, like people just don't listen because they're just like, oh, I've done this a million times, like I know what it is. So like I've been on a few flights where like the flight attendants are just that cool and they'll like choreograph a dance to it or like do something cool so that people will pay attention. But you don't always have that, and so you have the people who just are like, I don't care, I'll be fine.
So like like I said, we flew out of country, and in Europe where we were anyway, we heard it 3 times in 3 different languages, and by the time we flew home, we could do the whole routine with the flight attendants. My brother's actually up there like but like it I don't know, it's bad because a lot of people just don't listen to them, and I think then the responsibility falls on the flight attendants to know what to do and to be able to like herd people out or, you know, show them what to do like on the spot. So
Because the airline companies, even though they know that they have all their frequent flyers and all this stuff, they every time they fly, they're anticipating that they're reaching someone that has never flown before. So that's the whole purpose of, you know, the same old. And so like, honestly, I'm okay if like you've flown enough and you're like, I know what to do, you know, I'm in an emergency exit and everything like that, to zone out, because like I do it because I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing. You know, look over the manual, all right, everything sounds good. But like, the purpose of that is to educate the people that haven't flown. And so, you know, maybe they could take a tally, anybody who hasn't flown, you know, but instead of doing that, you want to educate the whole, you know, everybody. So, but that's the whole purpose behind it.
And people who haven't flown are probably scared, so they're gonna pay attention to it. So like that's what it's for. Like they're gonna pay attention and know what to do and honestly, if they pay attention, they can probably help people that didn't really pay attention.
Yeah. I think sometimes we can be overconfident, and one of the questions was like, can you be too safe? And for me, when I fly, I think I have this mentality that flying is safe, like it's safer than walking, you know? I know that fact.
Yeah.
And then quote it to my grandmother when she's scared. And so I just don't pay attention, and I wouldn't know what to do in an emergency, but it's just kind of like, nothing's gonna happen. And that's bad. But
I was on a flight once and it was like an hour into the flight and they had given this procedure that they always do, telling you like where the exits are, and the cabin pressure dropped, and that's when the mask dropped and blah blah blah. But I could say like over half of the plane didn't know what to do, even though they had just given the instructions an hour before. So like luckily like there was nothing actually wrong, but if there had been a problem, over half of the plane didn't know what to do, and it's now up to the flight attendants to get you all figured out when you should have been listening.
I think I would be totally different than Sarah. I would be scared to death, so I would want to know what exactly to do. So I would probably read everything that they gave me like 3 times, and I would listen.
Another one of the things is like in the sense of an emergency, you know, you could know what to do, but you could just be overcome with panic that you would just totally blank and forget how to do anything.
And there's this fatalistic, like, if a plane crashes, sure there's examples of everyone surviving, but in my head it's just like, if it crashes, I'm gonna die anyway.
No, that's what I would think. Cause like if it's that's why like if I get on a plane, I'm like, this is such a horrible way to think, but I like to be all the way at the back because like the way I think, I'm like, if this plane crashes, the people in the front are going and I want to make it. So I sit in the back. But like, so I mean, I guess that's bad, but
Yeah, because if you were all the way in the back and there weren't a lot of people back there, like the people in the front might forget about you whenever they were doing something. Like, because I sat in the back my first flight ever, and I had my flight attendant with me, but we were like the only people in the last 3 rows, so that was kind of weird.
And I actually read that was the safest place to be if there was a plane crash.
But you're further from the exit door, though.
no, I don't know.
Well, I
there's
guess
exit
there would
doors
be
back
at the
there.
back.
Yeah, there's.
But, like-
I check.
I would want to be in the back, but close to an exit door, I guess.
Yeah, that.
Not the very back.
Cause those flight attendants in the back, they have their little exit doors, and like I've gotten like me and the flight attendants will really talk, and I'll be like, okay, so do you guys have like a special plan so that if it does crash, y'all are getting out first? I want to be friends with you. So, like, but definitely I sit in the back. Like when booking flights, like I know business class is like, oh, we're business, we're gonna be up front. You can take it. I'm cool with that.
Well, back to the example on the Hudson River. I was reading this past week, and it said that only a small fraction of the passengers flying on the flight that landed in the Hudson River exited the plane with their life vests. So, I guess if it wouldn't have been a smooth landing like it was, there might have been a lot more casualties. So I guess that some of that has to do with the responsibility of the flight attendants and the pilot and the co-pilot, but also you have a responsibility for yourself. And I was reading that if they would have followed the safety instructions, or at least read them and listened to them, that they would have known to grab their life vest before. And I don't know where the life vests are at on the plane. So I don't know, like if they're right there near you, like above you or under you.
It's right under you.
Or
It's like
underneath
your
your
seat
chair.
cushion.
Yeah, your seat cushion. So I guess like if you wouldn't have listened to the safety instructions or read them, you would have never known I have to grab my safety vest from under my seat. So if it wouldn't have been like a good landing, like Blaine said it was, then a lot of people might have died from drowning or something because they wouldn't have had a life vest. So that's when I read that. That was another reason that I would have definitely read the instructions and listened to them more.
But that's like Kristen had said, like in the event of like panic, like I could see like if you land on a river but in my mind like we've just crashed, like I would just jump out because I'd be like I can swim, it's all cool, I don't have time to waste, like let's get out of here. So like in the event of a panic, like my first instinct would be like let's get out of this plane. So like sometimes all of that like instruction that you've been given and all that, it just goes right out the window. And so then it's just like, I mean, there's a cost to like the people who are responsible for that, for getting all the information to you, and then there's who's actually like utilizing it. But it's better than not putting the information out at all.
And
A big reason why they have those life vests is because if it lands in the water and the plane starts to go under, it's going to cause serious suction. And if you're swimming, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, it's not
You're
gonna
just
matter.
going to go with it. So you really like, there's some people that are like, well, I wouldn't put it on. No, you need to put it on. Like, please don't just jump out of the plane.
also, if I remember correctly, the Hudson, it was like January or December, and so the water was like, if you would have stayed in too long, you would have died of hypothermia. So that was another big thing, is like you never know what the the risk is going to be, and that's why they say it's better to be safe than sorry. But yeah.
I do think the instructional videos are like the, they have someone speaking and then the flight attendants are acting it out. They could be more clear and like louder and just like more in your face, because in that situation, I remember seeing the videos of them like walking off the, like being rescued from the plane, and they were like shaking and just like really bad off, and I can't imagine being in that situation and panicked like that. And just I remember seeing them and thinking, man, I would not remember anything even if I paid attention, like, because it needs to be more like, this could happen, this is what you need to do. Seriously.
Well, and they go really super fast. So I'm like, I can't understand what you're saying when you're rambling on like that. So I think they should slow down and like yell it into the microphone.
kind of like what Sarah said. I'm one of those, like, I'll jump on a cruise ship in a heartbeat, but will not ever get on an airplane. But when they're going over, you get on the cruise ship, you know, after you've been on so long, they go over all the safety instructions, like if the cruise ship was a sink, blah, 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 blah. I'm like Sarah. If they tell me, you know, put on this life vest, blah, blah, if it sinks, it sinks. You know, I've just, it's never been scary. But I will not get on the airplane.
Yeah.
I'm more afraid of cruise ships.
I'm afraid of both of them. I like to keep one foot on the ground.
Well, in that cruise ship event, you remember when that cruise ship lost all power and then they had like feces? No, on an airplane you don't have that. Like do you remember when that happened? They had to like use the bathroom in buckets and they were like stranded in the middle of the ocean with like sickly. No, I could not do a
like,
cruise ship.
if this airplane lost all power, like,
Then you're dying.
So-
But I would rather like not have to be sick by other people like feces near me and like. I don't know which one's better. I don't think there's a comparison.
Well, that cruise ship wrecked recently too, and
Oh God, no! I can't do cruise. Like the water makes me extremely nervous.
Let's get into economics of this stuff. Okay, ask some questions that relate to the economics.
Okay. Do airlines have any incentives to provide adequate safety?
One of their big main incentives is if they prove to the passengers that they are good flying and the passengers are the ones flying back and forth, they're always introducing you to their credit card or their mileage, Sky Miles or whatever it is, their bonus. That way they're making money, but it's also like customer loyalty at the also.
Yeah, they get a lot of repeat customers because if I know that you're safe and I'm not gonna crash on your plane, I'm gonna come back.
yeah, and the negative, like if you crash, I'm not gonna fly. Like, you have incompetent pilots, then I'm not gonna trust any of your other pilots. You know.
Okay, so with safety brings benefits, and we've already talked about that, and it also brings costs. So, does anybody want to show the relationship between safety and the marginal benefits and the marginal costs, like it had in the book? Maybe a different example, or just explain it how you would understand it.
I would say that like flying has definitely gotten a lot safer, but the quality of flying has definitely gone down. Because like I can remember going say 10 years ago, and overall like the security was less, but I know the one thing that people talk about, I could actually stretch out my feet. So I mean like, and so now like you have top-notch security, but like you're cramped into this. I don't even know how small it is. So but then again, that's like, and that in some ways benefits the airline because the majority of people now have these small like cubicle type spaces, but then you can upgrade to the more space, and so that's more money, and so then that's for the airline. So
They were talking about how for each safety feature, you add, or for each of the same safety feature, you add the marginal benefit goes down. So like, they gave the example of doors, right? And how the first door, you can save a whole bunch of people, and then the second door, you're gonna save less people, and the third door, you know. So each door, the cost goes up because you're not getting as much benefit from it. And I get for every, and they gave several examples, like different safety features, if that's the case.
And the door thing that she was talking about was kind of when Dr. Schur was telling us about when you go to McDonald's, you know, your satisfaction after your first one and your second one. When I read that, that's what was kind of going through my head was like, there's got to be the balance between being satisfied that you're going to be safe, but also, you know, how much you have to pay to compensate for, you know, because if they're paying to make new airplanes and they're paying to put more doors in, that just means their flights are going to have an increase in price. So that means the consumer, the passenger, is going to have to pay more. So you want to be safe, but you also want to pay as less as you can to be as safe.
Anyone else? Okay.
I'm gonna ask a question here. So do you think airlines provide the sufficient safety for their plane? Go ahead.
I'd say yes, but that's also what we've always said until something bad happens, and then they make it more, and then something bad happens and it makes it more. So right now, yes, but in 20 years, we might say, no, this is horrible security.
Do you think the airline, they from, based on their incentive, do you think they provide enough safety for us as a passenger?
Yeah,
You think so?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Because they have a lot of random screenings that they do, and then if they see anything, they'll just like rip your stuff open. Just to make sure that it's off of their hands or something bad happens.
Go ahead. You guys can leave. When I ask question, you can just leave, okay?
I think that, yes, both the airline and, the people operating the airplanes are providing enough safety, because generally when bad things happen, it's not necessarily operator error. It's mostly just engine failure or something like that. And even with these screenings, they're done thoroughly enough to make sure that nothing that will cause problems is going to get on the plane.
I think that like with what they have to lose with something bad happening, they definitely take care of security, because even if there's an engine failure and it wasn't their fault, like the stigma that company would then get against them, even if it's not their fault, like that's such a loss then that it's worth to pay the input cost of all the security versus lose all of that business after something.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something here. When airlines decide to make certain investment, on their plane or certain things, they calculate the probability that's going to cause an accident.
The probability of that their
Accident will happen
okay.
if they do not install this thing. If
Okay.
they do, so they calculate the probability based on the historical data. Okay, and then they decide whether it's worthwhile for them to do it or not. So think about their objective function. Their objective function is different from ours. And our objective is to be safe, but that's not their objective.
Answering that kind of, that's what I was gonna say is that, when they talk about they're bringing out their bigger, better planes, whatever, they have to decide, okay, will it cost us more? Because, if it's a little less safe but it costs more, they're probably gonna look out for their business. Sure they wanna keep the general public, safe, like that's one of their goals, but, I remember.
Why do they want, I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but why do they want to keep us safe?
So they can make money, so people keep
So
coming back.
they won't ruin their reputation, so
Right.
they can keep selling their tickets.
Right.
So it's still all about their profit.
Exactly,
Yes.
And then I was just gonna say that so they're thinking of keeping us safe for their good, while we're thinking they're keeping us safe for our good. So it's who's really, and obviously, so that's where the difference is, they're looking out for them, and we think they're looking out for us, but not really.
I have a question. Do you think information about the pilot's previous training experience should be available to?
I was gonna ask that because my dad was flying recently and he said the pilot looked like he was like a teenager. And so he was just like, I don't really want to be on this plane. And my dad's a pilot and he was just like, I don't really trust you. And so we're talking a lot about security, but what about how much they make their pilots fly, or what kind of extra training your pilots need every so often, or how long a flight, or how many pilots need to be on the plane, or how experienced your pilot needs to be before he can fly at all.
My uncle has a small plane. You can only fly 2 or 3 people. And he has a pilot's license, which means that he could get a job at a big place. And I would definitely say I would not want him driving a big airline. I'm comfortable flying over Oak Island with him, but I couldn't imagine going across the country. So I think that's a very big deal, because even though he has a pilot's license, I don't think that he's like qualified for long flights or anything.
And I think that also, you have to, when these airline companies are like, well, it's probably safer to have 3 pilots for a longer trip because they'd be able to stay awake, they'd be able to rely on each other more, but it's more cost efficient to have only 2, so that's what they do. If that makes sense, they're like, so I agree, like, I think that a lot of them do the right training, but I think that the biggest problem they run into is on the longer flights. They'll have like a mature looking pilot, and they'll have like the co-pilot, which is usually like a younger guy, and so you have this worries like, well, maybe they should have maybe 2 more mature kind of looking people, or they should have, you got to teach somehow, so maybe they should have another person just in case, because you always like when you get on the plane, they're usually standing right outside the cockpit, and you look at them, and like humans judge people, so that's just what we're gonna do. So like, and we're looking out for our safety. So like, that's another thing that the plane companies, they just, sure, maybe they could put 3 pilots on, or maybe an extra flight attendant to make it safer, but it's all about cost and how much they have to pay their people.
And the other thing is that, like, how you said, like, you saw a young pilot, like, it costs money to train these pilots. So if you're training them until they get to a mature age or enough hours, like, that's costing the airline company more money versus if they were just like, okay, you have this amount of hours, you may look like you're 12, but you can do the job. So, I mean, it's less cost to them, and so, and by their books, it's less cost, and they've met the standard. So, I mean, I don't see them giving them more training if they don't have to.
And I want to bring the issue here. That's very good. You guys talk about that's training younger folks. Okay, but that is related to one important issue in this example, which is asymmetric information. Why? Because I'm a passenger. If I can decide whether to fly with this airline before I look at the pilot, then that will make a huge difference, right? I do not know what would be the pilot, whether the young, only flight, 2 years, or whether somebody has been flown, for 20 years. I don't have that information when I bought the ticket, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if they give you a person with, years of expertise, you will not know that. You still could not pay more money for that. You see? So the company have no incentive to hire somebody with extreme expertise because that information cannot be delivered to you. So it cannot, let's say if you see this, you would be willing to pay more. Since you cannot see it, so you cannot pay more money. Thus, they have less incentive to do it. So this is what we call the economic problem. It's an adverse selection problem. Adverse selection problem is, if we can, know in advance, who are we going to fly with, we're willing to pay $100 more just to have somebody with expertise. But since we do not have that information, we're less willing to pay more. And since we're less willing to pay more, and the company has less desire, has less incentive to have better product delivered.
Why can't they do that though? Like, why can't they put out like their information?
Because then that promotes like discrimination against a certain type of pilot. Because then like an airline company isn't gonna put the time in to train you, but they'll be more likely to hire someone who's older and already has the hours because that's gonna bring them in more money.
And I believe they don't schedule pilots like much in advance. It's like you're on call and they say, hey, you're gonna fly this flight because you're on call.
So did what I said make sense to you guys?
Yeah, that makes sense.
My neighbor's a pilot, and he told me that when he went to get his pilot's license, it's kind of like when you get your driver's license, you have to take a written test, and then it's like you get like your flying permit, and you have to fly with the instructor for I think a year to 2 years, and like you have to like log hours and that kind of thing flying. And then you get your actual pilot's license, but you're only allowed to fly certain types of planes. And then you can like add extensions onto it to fly larger planes like jets.
I wanted to ask about customer costs and benefit.
I like to talk about cost and the price.
Because when I go and buy and purchase a flight, I may consider how many legs it has, but I'm gonna go for the cheapest usually. And so usually it's okay. Do I want a straight there flight, or am I okay with stopping and then let's just look for the cheapest? I don't really look at, this company is safer or this company is easier. I'm just like, what's cheap? And so I think I wanted to ask, would we, if we had the chance, would we pay $100 more for a safer flight? Like,
I think if we alleviate the degree of symmetry, information asymmetry, and we would be willing to. We would. Okay. And talking about price, I'm going to tell you something that's more interesting. Okay, and I discovered this by booking the ticket. So one time I was flying to somewhere, I forgot, but the transferring flight happens in Chicago. Okay, so from Raleigh, RDU to Chicago, then to somewhere else. So I bought that ticket, so let's say it's about $600. Okay, then I thought about it, said, well, I'm going to check out the individual price for these two routes. So basically, I fly two routes, right? From Chicago, from RDU to Chicago, and from Chicago to destination. So I just checked individual price from Chicago to that destination. It costs about $150 more than the whole routes. Did you understand what I'm talking about? Blaine did not.
So are you saying that when you book a flight, and if you're gonna book a flight from like here to Washington and you have a connecting flight, so you're paying
less than if I just buy the ticket from the connecting city to that city is Chicago. Okay. And so that was actually very interesting fact to me, because thinking if the people who fly from Chicago knows about that, they will start buying the ticket, not starting from the Chicago, from some smaller city. They just throw out the first part, away and utilize the second part. I never done that. I do not know whether you can do that now. But definitely when you have a transferring flight from the big city and the price for that second part sometimes is much higher than the whole
So like
whole
the
trip.
price is like, it kind of varies. Like if you're like leaving from like a big city or like a small.
It's likely
airport.
that, yeah.
Okay.
that's how my dad buys his tickets. And sometimes it will be more convenient to fly direct, like from one airport that's equally as close, but he'll go to the smaller airport and do a connecting flight because it's way cheaper.
So that's related to what economic concepts.
marginal benefit, right? It would be your benefit to maybe to drive or go to smaller places. No.
Why?
We talked about that concept in the last few classes.
Opportunity cost?
Why the price is higher if the starting point is in a big elasticity? Because the demand in a bigger city is more inelastic. They are less sensitive to the change of price. They are less sensitive to a higher price because they
have to.
They have more income and yeah.
But like, I usually fly from Wilmington to Charlotte and then from Charlotte to wherever. But my mom started figuring out that if we just started flying from Charlotte to wherever, that was easier. And Charlotte's bigger than Wilmington. So that's like, we're going to the bigger city for the cheaper. So that's like opposite of what you said.
Yeah, that could happen too.
Because like normally it's way cheaper to just get on at Charlotte. Even though we have to drive 4 hours, it's cheaper.
How big is Wilmington?
It's not like, I can look at one side of the airport and see the other side.
Okay, so it'd be like Fayetteville?
Yeah, it's definitely like small like Fayetteville.
Just adding in my 2 cents. You said you had to drive 4 hours. Is it really cheaper?
Yeah, because if you have a car like mine, I get like 47 miles to the gallon on the highway. It's like $50 to drive, whereas your airline ticket would be like 100 miles more. So like,
A lot of people really do calculate all that. Like,
it really is a
how
lot
many miles
cheaper.
am I gonna drive?
Like I can get to Charlotte and back on a full tank of gas, and a full tank of gas is only $40 for me. But if I stay in Wilmington and buy the airline ticket, it's gonna be like 150 more. So would you just want to spend a tank of gas and drive, or?
I guess Wilmington is too small. It has to be a little bigger size, like from Raleigh. You know,
Yeah.
it's still it's decent size, but it's not as big as Chicago. Yeah.
And I was wondering, I'm not familiar, is Raleigh an international?
International.
Okay, so I think that's where the big key, because
Yeah.
like Tallahassee is a regional airport,
That's right.
but Jacksonville's the big international.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about a 2.5 hour drive from my house. So whenever we're going on trips as a family, that's what we'll do. We'll drive to Jacksonville, and it's a lot cheaper.
That's
But like to fly me home for like Christmas, like my parents are like, we don't want to drive 2 hours to come pick you up. So that's when they're like kind of marginalizing and saying, well, obviously you're not worth it, so just do it. But what I'm saying is the difference between the regional airport and the international
That's right.
airport, that's where the significance.
That's right.
Because
Yeah.
I'm guessing Wilmington's regional.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
small.
so that's
Yeah.
what the.
Good.
So like the regional ones, they basically they would charge more because they don't have like enough funding and all of that
Yeah, but-
and like all that stuff.
Fayetteville's actually pretty cheap, though. Yeah.
That's what I'm flying out of, so I guess I'll learn that.
That's what I've been told.
Okay, so Sarah said that you did say you would be willing to pay more for if you could
Well,
find out the
I'm just asking, like, how much would we pay for safety, or is it, like, for me, I think a lot of when I buy a flight, I'm thinking about cost analysis, just like an airline is, more than safety analysis.
So some people would pay more for that. Do you think they should pay more, or would it be a waste? Because a lot of times it's not the pilot's fault, it's just something that malfunctions within the jet engine, or just something that malfunctions, so they would never know. Like, it could happen with any airline company. So do you think, would it be good to pay more? Do you think that it's reasonable to pay more?
I think overall you might get more customers who, I mean, because a lot of people just don't fly because they don't feel safe doing it, even though like statistics show, okay, it's safer than walking or whatever. But you might get a lot more well, not a lot, but you might get more customers in general. But people who have like experience flying or who live on like lower budgets like me, I'm gonna go for cheaper. I don't really care if I know about the pilot's background or not, because, you know, again, statistics show that it's not, like, more times than not, it's not the pilot's fault. So
Well, it even could be like just having an offering of being able to pay more, that more people, they probably wouldn't pay it, but just the fact that they know they could makes them feel like a little bit better about it.
it's like we have nothing to hide, so you might as well.
Yeah.
I think the crucial thing is we do not know how safe one company compared to another. And before I look at that site, AirSafe, I did not know, which airline has the most incidents in the last 20-30 years. I did not know that. So I know that, and so I think it's and it's a lack of information that's played a big role here.
I think a lot of people actually would judge on their baggage safety, because there's been a lot of. Has anyone seen the United Breaks Guitars song? It's a Canadian, and it's really awesome. So basically, this musician was flying United, and he checked his guitar, and they broke it. And he actually saw them. He was sitting in the plane, and he saw them loading it into the plane, and they dropped it. And anyway, so they weren't taking care of it and paying for it. It was a really expensive guitar. So he wrote a song about it and put it on YouTube, and it's really great and catchy and awesome. But I think people would say, if you're not going to keep my baggage safe, then I would pay more to go to a company that has better safety for my baggage, or even better customer service. I think people would say, they weren't nice to me, so I'm not going to fly with them.
That's true.
I think
I think the more expensive tickets for safety would be targeted towards first-time flyers because they'd want like a guarantee that it would be safe compared to people who fly a lot. Yeah.
And every airline throws your bags around. Like, if you just sit out and watch, you're like, wow, because they just literally throw them. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, safety is a big part, but I just think it's like so surprising how like people could totally disregard safety, but the moment like you're not nice to them, like I'm not coming back. So I mean, there's a lot that airline companies have to do, like just what they have to do to keep the customer happy costs a lot. So I mean, but in the long run, if they keep that customer happy, it's good for them. So I think they're just gonna keep doing it.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the discussion questions. We're gonna ask the first one, is it possible to be too safe?
That's because we don't have much time. I want to move to the question four. I want to hear what Jennifer wrote. Many automobile manufacturers routinely advertise safety vehicles and
I would say that like I feel like the safety for like airline companies is kind of, you're advertising it every time I have to go through security. So like whereas the car companies, like you can't change the channel without seeing a commercial talking about this crash test or that crash test or this award. Like airline companies, like every time I have to go to your airport, you're advertising how safe you are. So I think that's just, that plays a big factor into it.
I think, they're talking about different issue here. So you're talking about airlines, not airport.
Oh, okay.
Getting in a car accident is like a lot more likely than getting into an air accident, I guess. So I guess people are really more worried because whenever you're driving, there's a lot of other people on the road, but when you're flying, you're not like flying directly past an airplane like that.
Also, like for airlines, they have like pilots who had to go through certain training and that and the third. But like for cars, like you're driving, it's not like, I mean, yeah, you had to go to like driver's ed or whatever, but it's a lot more like, not a lot more likely for you to get an offender bender for like a plane to hit something.
I think it's because cars play a bigger role in our daily lives. Like, people are more likely to get in a car every day than go on a plane every day. So they might want that extra security.
Well, then we also see like car crashes happen, like it happens, but whenever you hear about an airplane crash, it's like a big thing. It's on the news. You don't hear about the one car crash that happened in Minnesota the other day. You hear about the airplane crash because it's a big thing, and they don't want people knowing that their planes like crash, like or something bad happens to them. So they don't want to advertise this happened.
Last time in car accidents, it's like distracted driving under the influence of alcohol or drug. Those things play a role in automobile accidents, whereas in an airplane, if the pilot's under that kind of thing, the co-pilot needs to take over. And they shouldn't be under it anyway.
I also think that like a sense of ownership comes in because it's like even though you buy a ticket, you're not buying the plane. So therefore, but you are buying the car that you drive. So and I don't know. Just personally with me, if I buy some, I want it to run right, and I want to be able to feel safe in it, especially if I'm going to spend that much time in it. So I think that plays a factor in it too.
I think when cars advertise for safety, the whole advertising, you're saying the safety is for when something goes wrong. And so if in my head when I imagine airline saying we're safe, we have all these safety precautions, it's like, whoa, something's gonna go wrong, you're gonna keep me safe if something goes wrong. I don't even want to think about something going wrong. Don't put my mind on that bad situation that could happen if I went on your airline, So whereas cars, it's our fault, and we want to be kept safe when it's our fault, but we don't want it to be someone else's
When
fault.
a pilot shows up to work, they don't just get on the plane and like how we just get in our cars either. I think they have to go through like some steps before they are approved to fly that day, because obviously it's not like getting into your car wherever no one's wondering if you're under the influence and stuff like that.
And also I was thinking is the safety of the car can be tested. Before every new car came out, they're going to test it. But can you test the plane with a real pilot on it? You really can't, right? So I think that's,
That'd be expensive.
That'd be different.
Yeah, I do think though, eventually, like, in the future, that could be something that could be tested. Like, the way that we're going with, I don't know if you've been, like, paying attention, but, like, they've been talking about how cars are, they're making the cars that can drive themselves. And so they're doing this, so eventually, like, the technology will catch up, and we might be able to do this, and then we could see a change, but for now, you're right, there's a big
I don't think I'd ever trust, like, are you saying like a plane that could drive itself? Cause I
No,
I wouldn't trust
I'm saying there eventually technology, there will be a way that they can test it.
Oh, okay.
Plane safety.
Planes technically can drive themselves.
Yeah, there is autopilot.
Don't tell me.
okay, where
Honestly, I think I trust them.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up. And you guys did a great discussion, okay? And so next week I still want you guys to do the market structure. So today's topic is a little bit out of what I really wanted to do. So next week we're going to focus on the market structure. And Alex and also Jacob is going to do chapter 17, right? And about that contract thing, and I need a volunteer to do the Thursday presentation. And what I think, so far we have how many presentations so far?
She didn't tell me.
We have 6 presentations so far, and I think some of you did an impressive job, and some of you did a good job, okay? And couple of things I want to mention here. And for your presentation, first you have to prepare a lot. You have to know the materials. And if people are not talking, you're able to throw out the comment and make a suggestion and lead the discussion. So you have to prepare very well, And so that's one thing, I want the presenter to pay attention to. The second, you make the people talk, make the class talk. So there's 2 keys there. You prepare well, and also you lead the discussion well. Okay, so, and for all future presenters, and I want you to, and really emphasize this too. And like I said, I think all of you did a very good job, and the summer presentation are very, very good, very impressive. Okay, and I hope to see, even better ones in the future. So, I need a volunteer for the Thursday presentation.
What
Is Thursday also under market structure?
And the market structure, yeah. So we're going to do contrast, combination, conspiracies on Tuesday. And we did 16, 17, so there's 18 and 19 left. Okay, so we can either do the first explanation, which is chapter 18, or do the competition 19. So who wants to do the Thursday one? And you can pick a topic from chapter 18 and chapter 19. So we still have not finished the first round yet. After we finish the first round, then so who wants to do the Thursday one? So who have not presented yet? Raise your hand.
You said Thursday was chapter 18?
Oh, 19.
Okay, we can do 18 Thursday.
18? Okay. All right. Okay.